Good afternoon. My name is Jason Urrutia. I will be presenting the at-risk portion of our group project. We'll start by defining what an at-risk student is. The textbook defines students who are at risk as students who have experiences, living conditions, or characteristics that contribute to school failure. Some of the causes for students who are considered at-risk students could be interactions with others, child or adult, the influences on language and cognitive development that the people around them have on them. What I mean by this is the nature versus nurture aspect of development. How the child talks at home will make a difference in how they develop their skills in the classroom. For example, a student who only speaks their native tongue at home may have difficulty pronouncing some of the sounds in the English language. And they may have certain tendencies in the dialect that do not translate into English. Another cause may be family situations, family income, and lower expectations. So this idea covers many bases, and I'll try to keep it as compact as I can. Poverty is one of the greatest influences for at-risk students. Children living in poverty are more likely to have limited readiness skills and lack the readiness to learn to read. Even more severe than that, a student in poverty may also be homeless. Homelessness can be challenging as these students often transition from school to school and have a lack of confidence or a sense of embarrassment due to their situation. This break of continuity in their education will often leave gaps, as not every teacher's lesson plan is the same. For example, if a student switches around from Christmas time, one teacher that they had before may teach analog clocks in the spring, and the teacher that they have teach them before Christmas break, and they might miss the entire lesson depending on which teacher teaches when, if that makes sense. So if they went from the teacher who teaches it later to the teacher who has already taught it, they'll miss that information. I hope I said that right. I think so. Another factor could be the migrant status of the family. Migrant status is a huge factor in Florida, as seasonal jobs attained by many migrant workers can be found here. So it's something that a teacher should be cognizant of. Many of the situations of these families find themselves in prioritizing other things over the student's education. Some people worry about having enough to eat for all of their family, or having somewhere to sleep, or even putting clothes on everybody's back in the family. Other students struggle with depression, students with suicidal tendencies, students who have lost a loved one, and students experience divorce in their family. Students under these kinds of circumstances may disengage and not care about lesson plans or grades, or even showing up to school in the first place. Types of at-risk students. There are not necessarily different types of at-risk students. There are different causes and different areas a student may struggle in, but that would categorize them into a type of at-risk student. that would not categorize them into a type of at-risk student. A more appropriate way to categorize at-risk students would be in level of severity, which will be discussed later in the presentation. Impacts of being at-risk student or being an at-risk student. According to Part A, Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACE studies, surveyed thousands of people in 10 categories of stressful or traumatic experiences before the age of 18. Using this, a score was developed. 23% of students in the study have a score of 3 or more. A direct correlation was found with students who scored a 3 or higher, as they are more than twice as likely to be suspended from school, 6 times more likely to experience behavioral problems, 5 times more likely to have attendance issues. Students with higher ACE scores are also more likely to have trouble reading and have a lower GPA. Ultimately, this means that students who are considered at risk have increased behavioral problems that coincide with their cognitive disadvantages. So the more at risk you are, the more at risk of not succeeding you are. Now we will discuss instructional practices that we could implement into the classroom. Beginning with a universal screening or an assessment to first identify students who would fall under the at-risk category. Instead of being preoccupied by the reason why students are at risk, you must first identify them as being at risk. The earlier this is done, the more effective it becomes, as legislations such as IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, to help support these students. Catching these deficiencies early will prevent learning problems from escalating and prevent students unnecessarily being put into remedial courses later in life. Differentiating the instruction. This refers to adapting the way you deliver instruction by adding support, specializing the material in the content to individualize the instruction. The text suggests using the ADAPT framework. ADAPT: ask what is required of the student. Determine the prerequisite skills needed for the task. Analyze the student's strengths and struggles. Propose and implement adaptations from the 4 categories, which are instructional activity, instructional content, instructional delivery, and instructional materials. Test to determine if adaptations help the student accomplish the task. In this framework, you are basically ensuring that your student has all the tools needed to accomplish what you are asking of them, identifying where they excel and where they struggle, then giving additional instruction in the form they are receptive to before doing a check on learning to see if they retain the material. RTI, response to intervention. Develop progress monitoring that encompasses 3 tiers that become more individualized as the tier level increases. Assessing students to designate them into a tier by giving everyone the same task. All students struggling are put in Tier 2 and will get a slightly altered task to tailor to the majority of the group's main struggle. After which, the remainder of the students who still haven't accomplished the task will be put into Tier 3, where they are given an individualized lesson/task. The goal is for everyone to shift into Tier 1 as the lesson goes on, but students can shift through all the tiers based on their level of understanding. Accommodations. The role the teacher plays. Teachers are the main adult in the students' lives for hours every week. The role that teachers play in the personal and social development of the students is significant. Being there for a student can make the difference between them feeling like the classroom is a safe place, somewhere they can open up about their struggles that they may be having inside or outside of the classroom. It is important to be fair and consistent, and to also set boundaries and enforce rules while still being someone who is approachable, not someone who is feared. The three most common answers when students are asked to describe a good teacher is that they care about students, they are organized and maintain authority without the need to be mean, and they are good motivators because they make a fun and safe environment for learning. By simply maintaining a level of respect and genuinely caring for students, the doors open up for students who may be struggling at home to have somewhere safe they can look forward to going. That is the greatest accommodation one could give an at-risk student. Resources. As earlier mentioned, meeting the requirements for IDEA or ESSA can get a child the specialized help that they may require, but remember, the earlier the better. For students who are at risk and may be struggling with poverty or homelessness, just making sure they are getting free or reduced lunch or breakfast if the school provides it, checking with the school to see if they have programs to send struggling students home with donated food over the weekend, or checking to see if there are second-hand clothing opportunities, as kids are always growing out of their clothes. If one student's family has no need for the clothes they outgrow, it may be what another family needs to help their student. The resources depend on the need of the student, but a teacher is responsible for helping lead the family of a student to those resources, or even ensuring the family is aware of the resources that are offered to them.
An at-risk student may encounter the classroom differently. So, Jason, let's get over this way. Okay. Jason, can you solve this addition problem?
I don't know. Ask somebody else.
There's nobody else in here. So, when we're doing addition, we're going down. So what is 0 plus 3?
5.
5. So it's not 5. 1,
2, 3.
3. Okay, so we're done with this column. Are you okay? Alright, Jason, that's okay. We'll move on to multiplication. So we've been learning on multiplication for the past couple of weeks now. And our big test is coming up. And I just wanted to see if you're ready. So, what is 9 times 3?
Mr. Dalton, I don't know.
Okay, let's move on to a simpler one. Do you know this one?
5.
Close. It's 4.
I don't understand.
It's okay, Jason. Let me teach you. Today I will be talking about gifted students, and if you hear a little jingle in the background, that is my dog, and he is my audience. According to the National Association for Gifted Children, students with gifts and talents who perform or have the capability to perform at a higher level compared to others of the same age, experience, and environment, and one or more domains is giftedness. Students who are gifted exhibit high performance capability in the intellectual, creative, or artistic area. They possess an unusual capacity for leadership or excels in a specific academic field, according to the Texas Association for the Gifted and Talented. Gifted students are students that perform at a higher level in education when compared to other students in the same age grade. They come from different populations of race, culture, and ethnicity. A gifted student may need to be more challenged in a classroom when it comes to testing, assignments, and activities. According to the National Association for Gifted Children, students who are gifted can have learning and processing disorders that require specialized intervention and accommodations. They may also need extra help developing socially and emotionally. Giftedness isn't necessarily a disability in my opinion, although it can cause some issues, such as not having much in common with others the same age, following rules, having strong feelings towards certain things. Students who are gifted may also become bored and maybe give up in early schooling because it's too easy. So, ways to enhance work for gifted students are as follows. Students that are gifted may work through learning material and assignments faster than other students. A way to slow down the student a little is to assign fun extra work for him or her. You can assign a poster board project, art project, or even a summary paragraph or essay for that student. This will allow the student to be challenged at the same time, go at the same pace as other students in the class. Encourage different approaches to learning. Students that are gifted may come with different processes and methods to solve a problem. These students will work a completely different way than a teacher is teaching in the method. As you can see down below is PEMDAS. Everybody's heard of PEMDAS before, but students with the giftedness can find a different way to solve this order of operations, for example. Accommodations. Here are some accommodations that can be used in the classroom to support these students. After quizzes and assignments, students are able to read a book. In elementary school to middle school, I was in the gifted program. And after tests and quizzes, I was allowed to move to a place in a room and quietly read a book. As a gifted student, I tended to take my quizzes and tests pretty fast. Sometimes it's a little too fast, and I missed simple questions, but most of the time, I finished with a good grade. Early on, when I finished my quizzes, I became bored and restless. I was a distraction to my other classmates while they were taking their spelling test. Eventually, my teacher realized that I was taking quizzes way too fast. I was later put into the gifted program. So, after those quizzes, not her, but my teachers put a book in front of me and let me read a book to stay quiet and occupied while the other students finished their exams. Another way to accommodate this giftedness is to assign extra assignments. During elementary school in the Gifted program, we were allowed to volunteer to do extra assignments in order to stay busy and challenged in the class. These assignments consisted of word searches, reading assignments, and multiplication table practice. On some weekends, we had a weekend program called Saturday Smarties, where all students could come to the school on a Saturday morning and do fun and activities and assignments, similar to those listed here. Other accommodations that can be used for gifted students or what I like to call relaxation spaces. Gifted students may struggle with social anxiety, behavioral issues, or other mental issues. In the classrooms, if any of these students in the classroom, if any of these issues arise with a gifted student, it is important to have methods to calm them down. For example, a Zen garden. As pictured below, that is a Zen garden. But in the classroom, some teachers may have a smaller scale that can fit in the palm of your hand. And students will get a rake and rake through the gardens and organize rocks, and it's a very common experience. Stress balls. Stress balls are little squeezy balls that students can squeeze and take their mind off of their anxiety. If a student is feeling overwhelmed, they are allowed to move in their own desk away from the issue at hand. They are allowed to separate their desk from either students or whatever issues are bothering them in the classroom. Sometimes a student may just need somebody to talk to and get their mind off of things. As a teacher, you can pull that student aside and talk to them about their interests, just so they can get their words out. That way they're not talking during class or acting out. In the gifted program, I was put into an extra class. During my science and social studies class twice a week, me and the other gifted students in my grade were pulled into an extra class. In this class, we learned about subjects that weren't in the regular curriculum. We learned about things like Greek gods in first grade, folk tales in the second grade, and even 11th grade math in the 8th grade. This program allowed me and others to exercise our brains. As a teacher, it is important to look out for our students who are gifted. And in my opinion, giftedness isn't a disability, but a blessing. Thank you.
Contrary to an at-risk student, a gifted student may be overly excited to do their work and act out differently. Dalton, what is
32.
Correct, Dalton. What is 6 plus 2 plus 5? Anybody else in the class that's not Dalton? Anybody else? Dalton.
13.
Correct.